All right. Aloha, everyone. Happy Aloha Friday. And welcome back to another installation of Manoa Valley Theater Live. I am your host, Dylan Chase Lee. And what a day it has been for everyone. Um, Unfortunately, Kip is not going to be able to be with us, but he's with us in our hearts while he takes care of some personal things and some personal matters. In addition, as well, we regret to inform you, for those who don't know, the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed away today at the age of 87. So, warm condolences to her family and anyone else who was a big fan of hers. And because Kip's not going to be here, so I guess I'll do the update. Some things that's going on at the theater. This past Saturday, if you were fortunate enough to catch it, I know that there was a lot of people viewing the Bamboo Ridge virtual event with Kathy Song reading some short stories from her book, All the Love in the World. Mahalo to the folks for tuning in and watching, and big mahalo to those of you who actually donated. And each contribution was split amongst Manoa Valley Theater and Bamboo Ridge. So thank you for donating and watching. In other news, Give Aloha is happening now. For those of you who don't know, Give Aloha is a fundraising event. You can go to any Foodland or Sack and Save and use our code right there, 77097 at checkout, and you can make any donation to Manoa Valley Theater if you'd like to help us keep us afloat. And hopefully we'll be seeing you folks in December when we put on Christmas Carol, a live radio play. But enough of that for now. Let's get right into it because we have an excellent show prepared today. So, our first guest is a familiar face to basically everyone in the state of Hawaii and beyond. He has been covering local entertainment for 30 years. He is a journalist with the Honolulu Star Advertiser and the predecessor, the Honolulu Star Bulletin. He is the editor of the 1,000-page encyclopedia entitled Hawaiian Music and Musicians. And we welcome to MVT Live today, Roosevelt High School graduate, John Berger. John?
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to be here, or I guess as we should say, it's wonderful to be here. It is certainly a thrill. And congratulations to you and Manoa Valley Theater on the Po'okela Awards, well-deserved, for the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. It was a beautiful show. And also great performance by you at the Hawaii Shakespeare Festival on Love's Labor's Lost, which was more recently, but also certainly memorable and award-worthy. So it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being on the show with us, and we're glad that we could get you on the show. I know you're busy with the advertiser and the whatnot, and yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah. Without further ado, let's just hop on into it. So, okay. John, you were born in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
That's right.
How did you end up in Hawaii? What brought you here?
My father was offered the chairmanship at the zoology department at the University of Hawaii.
Ooh.
And I was still at home. I was not yet in college, so I came out here with my family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if I had been a couple of years older, I would have been at college somewhere, and I probably would never have gotten out here, and who knows what might have happened.
Yeah. So yeah. What was it like growing up? You said your father was the chair.
Well, he came out here in 1965 as the chairman of the zoology department at the UH.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate. I was able to go to Roosevelt and meet people from, as they say, all walks of life. The Lieutenant Governor, Tom Gill, sent his children to Roosevelt. And there were a lot of, I guess you'd say, basically middle-class kids from Manoa and Makiki. And there were people from Pahoa and Papakalea. So it was a real great mix of people.
Yeah, all walks of life. Actually, my neighbor, Mrs. Ng, she went to Roosevelt High School as well. So it's very close to where we're living right now.
Well, if
Um,
you lived in Manoa and did not go to a private school, you went to Roosevelt.
yeah, because Punahou was way too expensive. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Punahou was the big rival,
Yeah. Ooh.
and there was a game back in those days.
Mhm.
All the town schools were in the same league, ILH, and then we would have a big sort of a grudge match with Punahou every year. It was called the paint. There was a paintbrush trophy that had been set
Oh.
up to keep kids from the two schools from going to the other school and painting our school's color on their campus, and their colors on our campus. And finally, the authorities said, "Okay, we'll just have a paintbrush as a trophy." Life at Roosevelt.
Have you ever participated in any of those paintings of the other
No,
schools?
that was before my time. By the time I
Oh,
was at Roosevelt, the paintbrush trophy had already been set up
oh,
and
okay.
had already been established, and so I don't think people from the two schools vandalized each other's schools. I
Well,
never.
that's
Yeah, so that was before. A guy worked with much later, Ron Jacobs,
mhm.
told me that he was one of the very few people who went to both of the schools. He started off at Punahou and got kicked out, and so he spent the rest of his high school time at Roosevelt. I think he eventually dropped out to go into radio, but
Oh.
great guy, great friend, Ron Jacobs.
Did you ever find out if Ron Jacobs liked being a Rough Rider or Buff and Blue?
We didn't talk about that a lot. I think he was kind of proud to have been a student at both places, and at the same time, having gone on to had a great career. Well, I don't think he graduated from either school. I think he dropped out. But
Oh.
yeah, well, kind of off on a tangent, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No worries. That's what I do all
yeah.
the time. I digress and we get into like weird, wonky places, and usually I have Kip to help
Well,
kind of rein me back in.
I just have to jump in and say I'm glad I went to Roosevelt. Not only was it a great experience, but when people ask where you grad, and when we say where you grad, we don't care if you went to Harvard or Yale or wherever. It's what
Mhm.
high school you went to. I can say Roosevelt, and I'm talking about this Roosevelt because there's Roosevelts on the mainland, but we
Mhm.
have our Roosevelt, and that's where I grad from. So that's it.
Woo!
Yeah.
All right. So, what sparked your interest in radio and writing about entertainment?
Well,
Because if your dad was a
yeah.
zoology
Well,
professor,
I was very fortunate growing up in Ann Arbor in the
mhm.
early 60s. There was a lot of regional music coming out of Detroit. That's when Barry Gordy Jr. was getting Motown started.
Mhm.
I would listen to CKLW, which was a Canadian station right across the river in Ontario, Canada. They
Ooh.
probably played regional music. There may have been some music that Canadian stations played that American stations didn't play. But
Mhm.
I grew up listening to the American top 40, the top 40 songs, and whatever regional hits were coming out of CKLW or out of the Ann Arbor, Detroit area. And at night, somehow, I don't know how this worked, but I could hear a country station somewhere. So I grew up listening to country music as well. So I grew up listening to different types of music, and of course brought that interest here when I came to Hawaii,
Mhm.
and grew up enjoying music.
Nice. So,
Yeah,
at a very early age, you were just fortunate enough to have been surrounded by kind of music. And
yeah.
what specifically about music did you like?
Well,
What kind of
well,
taught you?
I mean, it's how can you define what a great song is?
Mm.
I mean, but I enjoyed it. I like the music. I like the lyrics. My parents, their favorite musical was South Pacific, so I grew up listening to those songs as well. And I just, I guess like a lot of people like music, and I was one of them. And especially, since I'm a writer, and
Mhm.
I love great lyrics. But musical arrange, a great arrangement is going to catch my ear as well.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So, what was your first big break? What was
Well,
your first
I gotta,
published
I
piece
gotta
of?
tell you, I gotta tell you. In the early '70s, there was a local publication. It was our equivalent, the Hawaii's regional equivalent of Rolling Stone. It was called
Mhm.
Sunbums, and
Oh,
and they had a review of the Supremes. The Supremes came to Hawaii, and whoever
nice.
reviewed it wrote one of these tremendously self-indulgent, pretentious reviews. 90% of it was what the person had done the day of the review.
Oh,
And like there was one paragraph near the end, and then I went to see the Supremes, and they were okay, and then we all went out and partied. So I sent a letter to the editor, because these were the days when you sent letters, saying that I had grown up outside Detroit. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles were coming to Hawaii. It was their farewell tour before Smokey retired from the Miracles. And I said I'd grown up outside Detroit, which was true, and I'd been listening to the music since I was, in intermediate school. And so I said I can do a better job. And rather than maybe sending me back, or maybe other than ignoring me or sending me back a letter saying, okay, please send us 3 examples of your previously published work and references in your high school transcript, they just said, they sent me the letter and said, there'll be tickets for you at the box office. This is the deadline for the story. And that's how I got started.
Nice.
And my first published review was Smokey Robinson and the Miracles in Blaisdell Arena. It ran in June 1972. And I haven't looked at that review. I haven't dared look at it in almost 50 years. But I'll say it wasn't so bad that I didn't get a second chance. And I kept writing, and I went from print into radio, and I did some television. And then in 1988, Don Weller introduced me to Betty Shimabukuro, who was redesigning the entertainment section at what was then the Star Bulletin. And so 1988 was when I started writing for what was then the Star Bulletin and what is now the Advertiser.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, we have a question in the private chat over here, and we just want to know, we're curious, what would you say what was your best review and your worst review? Not necessarily which group had the worst review from you, but what would you say?
Well, one of my most critical reviews was a review of a Polynesian reviewer, a tourist review in Waikiki. And I remember the hula dancers all wore pantyhose because they had to do different types of dance. But the costumes were designed so when they were doing their Tahitian dance, their pantyhose, top of their pantyhose was showing several inches above their Tahitian dress. And I thought, design the costume so that doesn't show. I'm trying to think of there have been a couple of plays that I thought were done really badly, and I think you kind of got me on a spot here. But I like shows where the story is interesting, and of course I don't when it's not. I guess you kind of caught me here.
No worries.
Because I can visualize a couple of the stories where they just didn't make sense. Now I'm going to go home. And you know how it always is. I'm going to go home and I think, yeah, I should have told them about this thing. But I saw a show recently. Hawaii Shakespeare Festival did The Merry Wives of Windsor. Eden Lee Murray played Falstaff.
Yes.
And not only, she's a great actor, but her eyebrows and her mustache and her beard looked real. They were very, very beautifully done. But the most important thing was somehow she did something with her voice. So when I closed my eyes and listened, it didn't sound like a woman playing a man. It sounded like a man.
Oh.
And I asked her about it later, and she said, well, when she got into costume, that's just kind of how the voice came out. But that would be one of my best recent reviews because of there were a lot of things I liked about the show, but the thing that really stood out was Tony Pascoli took a tremendous gamble by having a woman play a male character, particularly one of the star male character, and she pulled it off. Not only did she have the acting down, she had the costume down, and somehow she did the voice so that, as I said, when I closed my eyes, I did not hear a woman's voice. I heard kind of an old, grouchy man's voice. That was amazing.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the character putting on the costume pieces is sort of like mask work. And as soon as all the costume pieces are assembled, then they can kind of embody that character.
Well, she evenly said that when she saw herself in the mirror after she got made up, that voice, she was asked, who is this person? Who is this character? And the voice just came out.
Oh.
And that can be that's a tremendous challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it works the other way around. For a male to play a female character, does he look like a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Does he move like a woman? Does the costume create that effect? And does the voice work?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she can do it, and sometimes she can't. And there's some shows where it's not intended, where you're supposed to where you're supposed to look at this and say, okay, this is a person of one gender playing the other gender.
Mm-hmm.
Tony has been famous from the beginning of the Shakespeare Festival in doing a show every other year with an entire female cast.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons is because there aren't a lot of great roles for women in Shakespeare shows. Most
Yeah.
of the great characters are male. And so there aren't a lot of opportunities for women to do Shakespeare, and there aren't a lot of women to do, great roles because there aren't as many roles. But by doing an entire female cast of Shakespeare, you don't have the distractions that can take place when you have some of the male characters played by men and some by women, and some of the female characters played by men and some by women. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But an all-female cast, I think, can be less distracting because going in, okay, we're not supposed to, we're not supposed to look and listen at this, and we're supposed to say, okay, these are women playing men, and just go.
Nice.
You got me off on a tangent now.
No worries. I'm sorry. I apologize for that question.
Yeah.
So what is it like writing a 1,000 page, or editing, I should say, a 1,000 page encyclopedia?
Great question. Dr. George Kanahele had edited the first edition of Wine, Music, and Musicians and it was published in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met him towards the end of 1999, the book was 20 years old, and he was interested in doing a second edition. And we talked about it, and I don't know why none of the people who worked with him on the first edition came forward and volunteered. I don't know why. I don't know what the circumstances were. But we were talking about it, and finally he said, if we do this, you're going to be doing 90% of the work. And I said, well, you did the first one. So they said, well, if we're going to do this, I need you to promise that you will see it through no matter what. And I thought that he was just wanting me to commit, because a lot of times people start something and they're excited about it, and then it's not as much fun as they thought, or it gets difficult, or it gets old, and they want to kind of fade away. Mm-hmm. So I promised him that I would, and he died about 5 months later. And I don't think he thought he was in bad health. So as far as I know, he was just asking me to commit to the project. Mm-hmm. But I had promised him that I would finish the book no matter what, so quitting was not an option. I was very fortunate. More than 200 people, who are all listed in the credits, shared their expertise with me one way or another to help me finish the book. Roger Jelinek became my agent and my editor, so we were able to go to Bennett Heimer with essentially a finished edited draft or finished manuscript. And Bennett Heimer at Mutual Publishing made the commitment to publishing a 1,000-page book with 64 pages of pictures, and it was a tremendous project. And I will forever be thankful to everyone who shared their expertise with me. But it was something I promised I would do, and even in the years when I didn't know how I was going to do it, I knew that somehow it had to get done. So it's a tremendous responsibility that I'm now looking at. Okay, the third edition needs to be done because Hawaiian music didn't stop. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, now another mountain to climb, but this is my commitment. I made with Dr. Kanahele back in the year 2000. So it's an honor, and it's a tremendous responsibility, and it's humbling as well, because I couldn't have done it without all the people that were there sharing.
Okay. Well, thank you, John, for sharing your stories with us, and we're gonna say goodbye for now, but don't go anywhere. We'll bring you back on at the end of the show, and yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
It is an honor to be here. Thank you.
All right. So our next guest is a native of North Carolina and has been a Hawaii resident for 24 years. She has over 23 years of experience in marketing, advertising, and public relations to a wide range of clients. She has been the public relations director for Manoa Valley Theater since 2012, and we welcome Kristen Jackson to the show. Kristen, how
Hi,
are you?
I'm
Now,
doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. For those of you who don't know, Kristen is actually at every show backstage, making sure that everything goes smoothly and as planned. And now we finally have you in front of the camera, so that's a treat.
I got roped in, yes, finally. I kept trying to like be as quiet as I could when we started talking about guests, but here I am. So
Yeah. So, what brought you to Hawaii? You're a native of North Carolina, not South, North Carolina.
yeah, well, it's an old story, Dylan. I was right out of college and I was dating a guy who was a Marine,
Oh.
and I didn't have any plans. And he said, "Well, you want to go to Hawaii?" And I said, "Okay." So, we came out, we got married. We did not stay married, but I stayed in Hawaii. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. When you were dating this Marine, did you already have your foot in all marketing, advertising, public relations, or did that come afterwards when you actually got here?
I majored in history and English in college, and didn't really have any clear idea what I was going to do after that. But public relations was definitely not on my horizon. I just kind of fell into it, actually.
Nice, nice. And can you tell us about your position for Manoa Valley Theater? So I said you were the public relations director for Manoa Valley Theater, but what is your job essentially for the theater?
Yeah, so most of my work happens way before a show actually opens. I'm kind of like the advanced team, setting up interviews, getting the word out, doing the calendar listings, getting interviews for the cast, setting up that type of stuff. And so I do that, for each of our shows, and then I also work with other arts organizations. So it's basically the guys at KHON laugh and say I should actually have a desk there because I'm literally there sometimes every single day in a week. That was pre-COVID, of course, but I've been taking our guests in and getting them interviews and writing radio spots and all the things that happen in promoting a show.
Nice. And I'm actually glad that you said promoting shows, because you actually got to work on a variety of shows, and one of which you got to work with the man right before us, John Berger.
Yeah.
We actually have some photos of that right now.
Yeah, John and I first met on the set of Baywatch Hawaii, which that's a photo there. Back in, I don't even remember, I think 98 maybe, 1998 that is. When the show first came here, there's a photo of two of the cast members. I think you might recognize that thin guy on the right is actually Jason Momoa, pre-weightlifting days. He was, I think, 18 or 19 in this photo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bad.
Pretty funny. But yeah, and then I worked on Lost as well, and that's, of course, Michael Emerson from Lost. And there's Jason Momoa again. This was the show Hawaii that was here at the same time as Lost, actually, but we only had one season. Then, I jumped over onto Lost. So there's a cast photo from Lost. Y'all remember. It's so funny because everybody thinks that I know everything about the show because I worked on it, and I have absolutely no idea. I hardly watched it, and the scripts were so confusing you couldn't even understand them. But and here's a shot backstage at Hawaii Honolulu Symphony Show with Lou Rawls and Liza Minnelli and her husband at the time. I can't even remember what his name was. I think it was David something, but they showed up, and that was just like so classic. I mean, crazy. And then there I am with Mr. Rawls, one of the nicest men in entertainment, unfortunately not still around, but he actually, one of my biggest regrets in life, I have to share, is that he asked me to go on stage and sing backup for him on one of his songs. and I was so I was so nervous and I just couldn't do it. And I think back to this day, it's like I really should have done that. I mean, can you imagine? Jeez, what a memory! But really, I mean, that's the thing about being a publicist. I'm always behind the scenes, and nobody ever sees me. But I get really great opportunities to meet amazing people. In fact, also in that same backstage area, I met Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh,
Came to see Renee Fleming in concert, and I don't get starstruck very often. And my starstruck moments are with strange people that most people don't. I mean, I was in awe of her, and I just I was really honored to have been able to be in her space, and I'm very saddened today. But
yeah.
honor her life, and let's carry on her mission.
Yes. So come November 3rd, everyone watching, you better be in the voting booths.
And I think we're going to have to step up a little of the protest on this one because, we're going to have to keep her mission. Her last dying wish was that she was not to be replaced until the next election. So, let's get out there.
Yep. Get out there and vote. So kind of moving forward, what are the biggest challenges in your profession? So you kind of mentioned that being in public relations, you're always kind of behind the scenes. Is that kind of a challenge for you, or you kind of like or prefer being behind the scenes?
I love being behind the scenes. I mean, when I first, way back in the day, I had thoughts that I would be in front of the camera, but I went to a couple of auditions and I hated it so much that like pretty much ended that for me. But I like being behind the scenes. I'm very detail oriented, which you have to be. I don't think most people realize that about a publicist. I mean, you have to be juggling like 50 things at once, and usually there's lots of fires going off all around you. So you're trying to juggle those things. But yeah, I mean, the biggest struggles probably have come in my work on television and film, and it's just I think probably one of my most memorable and difficult experiences was on the film Princess Kaitulani.
Oh.
Yeah. That was from like before we even started. It was just such a firestorm of controversy, and I was really at the center of it, behind the scenes, and that was a very challenging situation when you're trying to deal with controversy and keeping the mission forward. It can get pretty hairy. I think I came home every night in tears.
Oh.
And I don't cry a lot, so that's saying something.
Yes, you have a very tough exterior, so I can only imagine whatever you went through.
Let's just say that I thought some days it was going to come to blows. It was interesting, but it's rewarding in the end to see the finished product.
That's good. So on a lighter note, what was the most memorable show that you helped promote for Manoa Valley Theater?
I was trying to think about this today, and there's been so many that I really enjoyed, and I think it's the ones with the bigger cast that are really fun. It just, I don't know, you get this energy of all these people, and I think Rent was definitely one that I remember. Interesting too, because we did it at Manoa Valley, and then I did it again with the Broadway, the national touring show came here. So that was kind of interesting to get like both sides of it, and see how two very different production companies put on a show. But I also enjoyed It Should Have Been You. That was really fun. I got to get the creators of the show to actually do an opening night video for the cast. So that was super fun. But then I also really enjoyed Allegiance most recently, because it was just, there was such a different level production for us. And I think it really, we literally did like every single promo type interview, performance, appearance that we could have possibly done. And I think it was a real success for Manoa Valley Theater.
Good. That's good. And last question for you. Oh, I hear my voice. You work a lot behind the scenes, and as you mentioned before, you enjoy being behind the scenes. But do you ever want to perform on stage?
Um, I'm a dancer, really. That was like my thing. I actually like was the I was in a lot of plays in school growing up and loved the theater, but I'm definitely more on the dancing side of things. But I'm so old now, my knees they just they just don't work like they used to. So yeah, probably not. I'll stick to Zoom calls. The star of many Zoom calls. That's what I'll be.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing your stories as well. And do you mind if I bring John Berger back onto?
We have the same hairdo, so you know.
Oh, okay. All right. Please help me welcome back to the stream, John Berger.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to say, Kristen, it's great to work with a pro.
Oh,
because I know there are a lot of times that media people will call you at the last minute and say, I need this, I need that, and you're thinking, I sent that to them last week, and they're saying, I need it now, and somehow you come through and you do it.
Thank you, yeah. and you as well. I think we've grown up together.
Yes, for the last 20-something years. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for coming on to the show today, and thank you for sharing your stories. And I apologize if I made anything awkward. I really can't function too well without Kip in the back, kind of reining me in.
I'm going to interrupt and say it's a great experience for me because for almost 50 years, I've been the person asking the questions, and you've given me a chance to experience what it's like to be the one who gets the questions asked and answer them. So thank you.
Hopefully I didn't hit you with a
no.
singer.
That was my fault, John. I'm the one who asked the question. What I wanted to know was who was your favorite interview?
One of my favorite interviews was Smokey Robinson because the first time I was able to talk with him, I was able to ask him a question about one of my favorite songs, ask the composer what the song meant, because anyway, and get his story straight from the composer's mouth, as it was, or let's go to the source and get the answer. It'd be like asking one of the Beatles, what does this song mean? So that was
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And those of you at home watching, please donate to Manoa Valley Theater. You can call us at 288-6131. Yes, I'm doing cat hands.
That was my line. I'm sorry, I forgot.
No worries. Or you can go to ManoaValleyTheater.com under Get Involved.
And in Honolulu, the number to call is 808-988
Yep.
6131.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Or if you're not at home and you're at the food line stage, you can also donate to Give Aloha, which is happening now. You can use our code 77097 at checkout and make a donation to the theater. Big mahalo to you folks again, and we'll see you next time. This isn't copyrighted by THON. I can do this.
You're the shaka guy.